Alright, hey guys, it's Emmy Wonderland, and today I thought it would be funny to share a story time. So, yeah, hope you guys enjoy this video, and yeah, just keep watching. Okay, so basically, this story takes place almost 2 years ago. It was December of 2019. So, little backstory, I was in choir. It was December, so we were obviously going to have a Christmas concert, and so I was all excited because, concerts, choir. I'm a musical child, so I enjoy band, I enjoy concerts because I'm in band. I've been in that for a long road. Long time. And so I basically was just like, this will work, it'll be fine, it'll be great, I'm gonna do amazing. So my dad had just recently passed away, because he died in June of 2019, so this was 6 months later, 6 months after the death and the funeral, all that had taken place. And so I was still just kind of getting over everything. So one day we had to go set up for the Christmas concert, which was the very next day. So, I'm just going to use my mirror. So, I kid you not, this actually happened. So, anyways, we are setting up, and we were all on risers, so we had to set up the risers. But the risers, like the back bars, to stop you from falling off of the risers, like if you trip, the back bars, like one of them just like wouldn't stay put, and there was like, so it was like one giant long thing, and then there was like bars, like 3 rows of bars, and those would stop you from falling. If you guys have seen those, you know what I'm talking about. So, anyways, we are all like, no one like even touch this thing. Just don't touch it, don't do anything, just don't. So there was 3 of us working on this back, these back of the risers. So it was kind of crazy. And so what happens is we're just like, no one touch these because we don't want anyone to get hurt. So, anyways, what happens is we are all like, there's the 3 of us that are working on the back of it, there's other people doing other things, and then these like 3 kids or so, they come over. Probably, I'm assuming they thought that we were done, but we weren't. So they came over and they leaned on the back of they leaned on the risers, the part of the risers that wasn't stable, and we were all trying to fix it. So these other 2 kids that were working on it, they were like, oh, it's falling. So they leaned backwards and I leaned forwards because that's where I was. So I leaned forwards, and all of a sudden there is like, this giant thing, and then all of a sudden, like, it hit me in the back of the head, like right here. So it was pretty bad. It just kind of like hit me. And so I kind of had a headache, but I kind of brushed it off. And then when we finally got it like done, like when it was all over, I leaned back and I hit my head on another piece of metal. So the back of the risers were metal along with what I also just hit my head on. So my head kind of hurt after that. And then what happened is I kind of just brushed it off and ignored it. I was like, it's fine. I've gotten worse. So I was just like, it's fine. But eventually my headache like wouldn't go away. and it would get worse over the day. So I decided it is time to go to the nurse. So I kept saying, I'm going to go to the nurse, I'm going to go to the nurse. And I was at the same table as my brother because we were in a different class. We were in the same class, it was just like a different class period. So I was sitting at the same table as my brother, and I was like, I'm going to go to the nurse, I'm going to go to the nurse. And his friend was like, you're fine, it's fine. He was not the nicest guy. I didn't really enjoy him that year. So he's like, it's fine, you're just overreacting. And I'm like, no, I'm seeing things that I really shouldn't be seeing. So I'm going to go to the nurse. And he's like, whatever. So I stood up and I asked to go to the nurse, and my teacher's like, yeah. And this was English class. I remember it being English class. She says, yeah, I can go to the nurse. So I stand up and I go to the nurse, and I'm kind of like dizzy. And I didn't pass out, surprisingly. And so I got to the nurse, and after that, I got there, and so I got there, and I was telling her everything that happened, and I was telling her that, like, I was seeing things. Like, I would see animals in a doorway, and then all of a sudden, I saw a cat in her doorway, and I was like, there was a cat right there. And she kind of looks at me, and she goes, yeah, just give me a second. And she picks up the phone, and she calls my mom, and she's like, is this Emily's mom? My mom says yes, and she's like, I think you should come get your daughter. She hit her head, and it seems like a concussion. So my mom, she came, and she got me picked up, and she took me to the ER right away. And so when they took me, they're like, okay, what happened? And I was like, we were just setting up for a school concert. Now, I don't remember if I told you guys this, but this is the day before the concert. The day before. So I was like, we were setting up for this concert, and I hit my head twice, and they're like, okay, we're gonna go get her a scan. So they brought me back. Then they got my results in, my x-ray and whatever, and they said it didn't look major. It was just like a minor concussion, and I should stay out of school for a couple days. Stay out of school for a couple days. You know what that means? That means no concert. So that means I'm not supposed to be near, like, loud noises the whole time, like a whole lot. So I'm not supposed to be near loud noises. However, since I was a clarinet player, I was in the very front when we were doing, because it was a band and choir concert. So I was in the very front because I'm a clarinet player. So that really made me mad. So I was like, so does this mean I can't perform? And they're like, I would recommend you didn't. It's your choice, though. So we made the ultimate decision to not perform, but I still wanted to go and be there. So I went and supported my friends, and I saw one of them afterwards, and she comes over to me and she's like, you left me alone? And I was like, I'm sorry, it wasn't my decision to do this. I was like, it wasn't my choice with this. I didn't do this to myself. Some other kids did this. And I was like, I won't be in school for a couple more days. And she was like, okay. So I was very upset with everything. And after that, I went home and I was really sad. My mom posted about it. And yeah. So I know that is a very short story. So I'm going to tell you guys a longer one so that I can continue to do this. And yeah. So when I was 1, when I was 1 and in a few months, my mom was in her bedroom, and my brother and I were also in her bedroom. So my brother was 2 because there's a 1-year difference between us. So he was 2 and I was 1, and we were in my mom's room, and she was doing something on the computer. She was looking at restaurants on the computer to take us somewhere for dinner. She wanted to go as a whole family, my mom, my dad, my brother, and me. So she's all like, okay, yeah. So anyways, since I was so light, I could grab onto the windowsill and just like swing my legs up and pull myself up. Since I was so light, I could just do that. And so I did. And then Andy pushed a chair over, so we were looking at the window. Now the window was open, but the screen, there was a screen there. So, no problemo, right? Nah, that's not the case here, honey. So, then what happens is, out of nowhere, I just decide that I'm going to have fun with the screen. And so I'm just like, finding it hilarious that I'm pushing up against the screen. But as I'm pushing up against the screen, it is slowly popping out. So all of a sudden, sooner than later, the screen pops out, and guess who goes down with it? Me! So I go down with it. I landed in the bushes, thankfully. Oh, and I did forget to mention, we were living in the 2nd story of an apartment. So, all of a sudden, Andy runs over to my mom and is like, Emmy fell out the window, Emmy fell out. And mom's like, what? Obviously being the concerned mother that she is, her 1-year-old just fell out of a window. So, after that, my mom got me, took me to the hospital to go get me checked out. And they basically were like, okay, what were you doing? And she's like, I don't know. She's shocked, and she's worried about her toddler. She's not gonna know what she was doing. She's scared, So she basically got Andy and I taken away from her for 2 days. So they're like, okay. And then all of a sudden, CPS shows up, and they're like, we're gonna have to look around your house to see what was happening, to see if you're a good parent. And she's like, okay. And they're like, you can't have your kids for 2 days. They have to go live somewhere. And she calls her mom, and she's like, so... And she's like, yeah, they can live with me for these 2 days. And she's like, okay. So she goes home, and she's sad, and she had been crying. Her toddlers just got taken away. I think any parent would cry. So then she's all like... And she goes home, and she looks at the computer, and she suddenly is like, oh yeah, I was looking at restaurants because we were going to go out tonight. So then she ended up being fine. She got Andy and I taken back. She got us back. Wow, that story is shorter than I remember. So it looks like we're going to have a couple stories in here, because I do have a long story for you. So, okay. So apparently that story was shorter than I thought it was. So we're gonna tell you guys another story. So years ago, okay, I guess not years ago, but in 2000, 18, I believe it was, I was diagnosed with like severe tonsillitis. So, little bit of background. I was always going to the nurse because my throat was hurting or I was having a hard time breathing. And so I was just like always going to the nurse, like literally all the time. And so basically after that, she was telling me like your tonsils are really swollen. Um, and like my mom was like, yeah, we're gonna go get them checked out. But every single time we would get them checked out, they'd be like, well, it just looks like tonsillitis. But I didn't know how that was solved yet. So basically, so one day we went to the urgent care to get them checked out, and they were like, those things are huge for you. And I'm like, okay, so what the heck is going on? And they're like, okay, so this is definitely a severe case of tonsillitis. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, so basically you're gonna need to get them removed. And I went, I mean surgery, doesn't it? And they're like, yeah, that does mean surgery. So I started to freak out because I don't do well with needles. So, and I knew surgery meant IV, which meant needle. So, yeah, I was not too excited about that. So, I was all like, great. So, from the time where it was just me going to the nurse like every single day, because, yeah, from that time to the time where my mom got an actual, like, scheduled appointment was a time frame of a year and a half. So I had tonsillitis for a year and a half before I got them out. And I was still trying to be like a normal person, like a normal active person, because I was doing sports like softball and basketball and track. Like I was still doing those with this thing. Like I am such a fighter. And so anyways, so my mom's like, okay, I'm gonna try and get you scheduled. And I said, okay, that works. So my mom calls me one day, and I'm at like my best friend's house, one of them, and she calls me and she's like, so I got your tonsil surgery scheduled. And I'm like, oh, when is it? And she says October 8th. And I'm like, hold up, let me look at this thing. So my friend had a calendar, and I looked at her calendar and I said, Mom, that's 7 weeks away. Why is it so far away? And she's like, I'm sorry, that's the closest they could get you in. And I'm like, that's the closest they could get me in. And she's like, yes, that's the closest they can get you in. That's the earliest. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, great. What amazing. So I hang up with my mom, and she's like, is everything okay? And I'm like, my mom got my tonsil surgery scheduled, and it is in 7 weeks. And she's like, oh, dang. And I'm like, that means 7 more weeks of pain and torture, which also means like 2 more months of this whole thing. So I was not too excited. So it was August. And yeah, so it was August, and I was talking with my mom. So then what happens is I would count down the days, the weeks, until surgery day. So finally surgery day comes, and I'm pretty happy that it's here. I'm ready to just get them out because they're causing me pain and a lot of problems. So I'm just like, you know what, I'm ready. Whether I'm scared of it or not, I'm ready. And so they're like, okay. So they're telling me everything that's going to happen. And then they bring in the IV machine. So that's when I start to freak out because I know what it looks like. Okay, I was hospitalized twice when I was 2 because I was dehydrated because I wouldn't drink or eat anything. So I knew what it looked like, and I had seen plenty of shows and whatever. So I was like, I know what these look like just right now. So I started to freak out, and Mom's like, no, it's okay. And they're like, Mom, do you want to come over here? And she's like, yeah, I'll get over there. So they're like, okay, just, hold your mom's hand and it'll be okay. And I'm like, okay. So they have me hold my mom's hand, and they take the IV and they put it in, and they're like, that's it. It's done. It's over. And I'm like, oh, already? And they're like, yeah, that's it. It's over. And I was like, okay. So during that, I forgot to mention this, but during that, they were putting in the IV, I was screaming one word in a sentence, and that word was daddy, or I want daddy, or something in that direction. And I was always, that's just what I would say. And my mom was crying, and I was like, why are you crying? And she's like, because you're talking about dad and you're hurt. Because this was 4 months after my dad died. Because it was October of 19. And so I'm like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. So then all of a sudden they're like, uh-oh. And I'm like, what? And they're like, we missed the blood vein. And I said, so what does that mean? You have to do it again? And they say, yeah, that means we have to do it again. So I start freaking out. And Mom's like, okay, you're not going to move this time. And I'm like, okay. So they are like, okay. Let's see how that looks. Why isn't it mixing? I want it to mix. Thank you very much. Okay. That did not work. So they're all like, so Mom is just like, yo, Emmy just like, it's fine, just hold still and it'll all be over soon. So I'm still like freaking out, and because I don't like needles in any way. When I was getting the vaccine, I didn't like it. I was freaking out the whole time, just like needles are nah for me. You know what? I'm gonna do something. So they're sticking the IV in me, and once again, the only word I'm saying is dad or daddy or I want daddy. Something of that sort. And so Mom is crying again, and they're like, well, where is your dad? Like, where is he? And I was looking at them, and I was sobbing, and I was like, heaven, I just told them that. One second. Okay. Hurt them to hurt me, or it hurt them to hear me say that, because they got this look on their face like, oh. Because they were saying like, oh, maybe we can call him and, he can calm you down. That's not how it's going to work, honey. It's just not going to happen like that. So I finally get it done, and I'm sitting back in my little bed waiting for them to just bring me back to get the surgery. And all of a sudden, just like out of nowhere, I sit up and I gasp, and Mom looks at me and she's like, what? And I looked at her. I'm not even joking with this, you guys. I looked at her and I said, Daddy loves me. Okay. And she's like, oh, that's so nice. And I said, no, he literally loves me. And she's like, I know he does. And I was like, no, he just whispered in my ear, I love you, little one. Because little one was like a nickname for me from him. So Like, I mean, believe me or not, but he whispered that in my ear. So I was like, everything else looks natural except for this. Let me get, one second, let me get this part. Be right back. I got it. So then she's like, oh, that's so nice. So then they finally pull me back into the room. They knock me out. And all of a sudden they're waking me up. And they're like, Emmy, it's all over. It's done. You did really good. And I was like, I don't even remember falling asleep. And they're like, yeah, you did. So then they brought me back to the room after a little bit. And they were like, do you want to keep your tonsils? And I'm like, no, thank you. But I will definitely look at them. And they're like, okay, yeah, we'll show them to you. So they showed me the tonsils. They had it in this jar. And I kid you not, they were this big. They were huge. That in my throat. Excuse me? No wonder I was like dying all the time. So we got home. I was out of school for a week. I went back and I was like, I'm back. I just got surgery, so shut up and leave me alone. Just kidding, that did not happen. But I was just like, I'm back. I'm pretty good. I'm healthy. That is my one and only surgery right now, as of this point. So it's really nice, and I enjoy not having tonsils anymore, but now I have another breathing situation. It's called asthma. So it really sucks. Well, anyways, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. These like 3 or 4 different story times, however many I just told. Originally, it was only going to be the one, but then those ended up being a lot shorter than I thought, and yeah. So, yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll try and adjust to this look. I'll try and adjust to it. Well, yeah, I'll see you guys down the rabbit hole. Bye.